Coming up today here on the Raiders Report, I got some must-see Raiders news and some NFL rumors that will 100% have an impact on the silver and black. The first topic that we're going to discuss here on today's show is the visits that the Raiders have today. And if you are watching this live, I said Raiders football is back because today is the official day for the offseason to kind of get rolling here for the Raiders. And they have 3 players that are entering the NFL draft visiting with the silver and black today. They are running back from Boise State, Ashton Jeanty, defensive tackle from Michigan, Mason Graham, and quarterback from Texas, Quinn Ewers. Am I the only one that finds it a little bit interesting that the Raiders invited these 3 players to their first day of voluntary offseason workouts? Now, I would imagine Max Crosby's going to be in the building because that guy essentially lives there. I would imagine that a lot of these other players like Jeremy Chins to the Landon Roberts, Geno Smith are probably also at the voluntary offseason workouts because Pete Carroll and John Spytek want dogs and they want guys that love football. So I do find it really interesting that those 3 players are all there today with the Raiders for voluntary offseason workouts. So the number one question that I want y'all to know, and maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, what is the significance to those visits being today? It wasn't yesterday. It's not on Wednesday. It's not on Thursday. To schedule all 3 of those visits today, I do think that there's some significance to that. So scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1, Mitch, you're totally blowing this out of the water. 10, that's a really big deal that those 3 players are there today. My answer is this. I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to go that the significance of those visits being today, I think it's a 7 out of 10, and I think it's a 7, maybe even an 8 out of 10 because I know the Raiders are interested in Ashton Jeanty. I know the Raiders are interested in Mason Graham, and I know for a fact the Raiders are interested in Quinn Ewers. Here's how I know, though. First off, they're interested in Jeanty. He's had a top 30 visit already, formal combine meeting, and a pro day visit. Also on top of that, John Spytek and the Raiders running back coach Deion McCullough had dinner with Jeanty, the Boise State head coach, after his pro day. The only team that had dinner with Jeanty after his pro day was the Las Vegas Raiders. Also on top of that, I would imagine that Pete wants to get his son, a little bit going in his new job. Guess who runs the running game? Brandon Carroll. He is the run game coordinator. He is the offensive line coach, and I could see that they would want Ashton Jeanty. In terms of Mason Graham, the Raiders held a top 30 visit with him and met with him at the NFL Combine. He's got Michigan ties with Brady, and we know Tom Brady's going to have a lot of pull this upcoming season. I also said in my show that I put out earlier this morning on my Raiders offseason winners and losers that it blows my mind in a good way how many things that this organization did to make Max Crosby happy, from keeping Adam Butler to keeping Rob Leonard to giving Patrick Graham a raise. And I'll tell you this, Mason Graham helps out Max Crosby, and he helps out Christian Wilkins a lot. Also, the Raiders clearly value the trenches. It's what they've been doing all offseason. Here's the really interesting one. Quinn Ewers, top 30 visit, met before the pro day and the NFL Combine. Quinn Ewers is the only quarterback entering the 2025 NFL Draft that has a top 30 visit, met at a pro day, and an NFL Combine visit on a day that they're doing voluntary offseason. Also, a few days ago, I said I believe the Raiders are targeting a quarterback on day 3. When you see the amount of draft rumors that indicate that the Raiders are looking at day 3 guys, when you see how many rumors, we're going to talk about some of them, that some quarterbacks could go earlier than expected. Also, I've said that I believe that Ewers kind of fits that 2 to 3 year development window. Geno's contract is he is guaranteed to be the quarterback for the Raiders for the next 2 to 3 years. You let Quinn Ewers learn and develop underneath him for 2 to 3 years, who knows? You could have a high upside guy, and Quinn Ewers is definitely high upside, but very, very raw still. So still what we're going to be coming up next here on the show is, again, some more Raiders news that I just find interesting. And anytime I find something interesting, I want to be able to share it with y'all. That's literally how I started doing this show. The next thing that we're going to talk about here is the latest going on around cornerback from Michigan, Will Johnson. And Johnson has been another name that you have to admit it as well. We've been hearing a lot more Will Johnson of the Raiders talking round 1. I don't know if Johnson would be the pick that I would go with at number 6. If the silver and black were to trade back, this is kind of where I would go, all right, this is where I would like Johnson a little bit more giggity in there. Because Johnson, I would say at 6 is a little bit early. Will Johnson a little bit later at pick like 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range just feels a little bit better to me. But according to Ian Rappaport, Michigan All-American cornerback Will Johnson, one of the draft's top cornerbacks, he's going to work out for NFL teams on Monday at 10 a.m. This is next week in Ann Arbor, now that he's fully healed from a hamstring injury, which he suffered in February. What's interesting about this is he's working out on Monday, and then guess what? The very first team that he's visiting with after his workout, that following day, the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Raiders have held a top 30 visit with them. They're going to have they had a formal combine meeting with them. Obviously, some Michigan ties there with Tom Brady again. Some Charles Woodson ties in there as well. Pete Carroll wants a corner. Pete Carroll loves cornerbacks that have that Will Johnson build. And this is something that we said, if you go back in one of our videos about a month ago, I discussed that a combine source that, again, we sent multiple people here at Chat Sports. It was like 8 or 9 guys to the NFL Combine. And one of our dudes said that the Raiders apparently asked Mason Graham about Will Johnson. And when you're asking another top 6 pick about another player that's probably going to go in, the top 10, top 12 picks, that really piques my interest. And then it piques my interest even more because Mason Graham is there for the official day today, and then Will Johnson's coming next week. The Raiders clearly have their eyes on both of those Michigan prospects. And then the final thing that I'm going to talk about here for Raiders news is some people might like Mel Kiper. Some people might not like him. But what's really important about this show is this is the final mock draft that Mel's going to put out. So the final mock draft for Mel, it has some value because Mel does hear some things around NFL circles because of his ties with ESPN. So because he's got those ties with ESPN, because he's talking to dudes like Schefter, I do really value what he has to say in that final mock draft. So what you guys are going to see is the players that Mel has projected to the Las Vegas Raiders at pick number 6, at pick number 37, because he put out a 2-round mock draft. But I also know this, that not everybody has the ability to watch and read ESPN Plus articles because it's not for free. So what I would tell anybody out there is this. This is why you should subscribe to the Raiders Report. It costs you $0 a year to subscribe to the Raiders Report. Or you can pay $120 a year for ESPN Plus and you can read Mel's article. Or you just watch the show and I'm going to break it all down for you. If you're a diehard Raiders fan and you want Raiders content 365 days out of the year, 100% free, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. So we're going to roll through here real quick what that Mel Kiper 2-round mock draft was. Coming off the board at number 1 of the Titans was Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell. Then Mason Graham goes off the board at number 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So then what ends up happening at number 6, the Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock, and I'm not shocked at all. This is the pick. This has kind of been the most popular pick by Mel. It's Ashton Jeanty. He's going to go off the board here at number 6. And Jeanty's been that name that's just constantly coming up over and over and over and over again in Raiders mocks. And Mel said this is why the Raiders would end up going with them at pick number 6. Last in rushing yards per game at 79.8. Last in yards per rush at 3.6. Tied for second fewest runs of 10 or more yards with 34. That's what Las Vegas produced on the ground last season. New coach Pete Carroll is going to want to much more out of his run game, and Jeanty could immediately flip the script. He displayed excellent speed, contact, balance, vision, and route to 2,601 rushing yards last season. He could be an elite 3-down back in the NFL. I agree that he could be an elite 3-down back. He does need to work on his ability to catch the football, which go back and look at his 23 tape. Go back and look at his 23 stats. He was able to do it, and he looked a lot better doing it. I want to see how he can get a little bit better in pass protection on top of that. But Ashton Jeanty at pick 6, I don't really think anybody would be mad about that at all. Let's now go to round 2 where the Raiders are on the clock here. Tyler Shuck goes off the board at 33. Jaylen Milroe at 34. As you can see, there are some people out there like Mel that think that there is going to be a run on quarterback a lot earlier than projected. I will tell you this very confidently. If Emeka Egbuka is on the board at this point, the Raiders will 100% trade up to 35 with the Titans, or they're going to try to trade up to take him because, hell, I think that there's a chance the Raiders could try to trade up and get him at the back end of round 1. But at pick number 37 in Mel Kiper's mock, the Raiders are going to go with linebacker Carson Swessinger out of UCLA. Swessinger was ranked my number 4 player that I would want the Raiders to take at 37, and I do think it's because he combines really well with the Landon Roberts and Devin White, and Kiper agrees with me. Swessinger came out of nowhere in 2024 with 115 tackles, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions. The Raiders have big question marks at linebacker after Robert Spillane and Divine Diablo both signed elsewhere. Swessinger could join new additions to Landon Roberts and Devin White to rebuild the position. So overall, I look at this mock draft by Mel. We addressed the need at running back. We addressed the need at linebacker. I would give this an A- grade. I would still like to be able to find a wide receiver. I would still like to be able to go out and find a corner. But if this is how the Raiders started the 2025 NFL draft, I would not be upset at all. Coming up next here on the show, we're going to get into the NFL rumors that you have to see. And actually, we just got some random Raiders news. Former Raiders cornerback Jack Jones went unclaimed off waivers and is now an unrestricted free agent. So that just goes to show that all 32 NFL teams had a chance to claim Jack Jones. Not a single team was interested, which means nobody was interested in that $3.4 million, which shouldn't surprise anybody because nobody ended up trading for Jack Jones. I'm going to get into the NFL rumors that y'all need to see here in just a moment, but today's show is sponsored by Game Time, the official ticketing partner of the Raiders Report and Chat Sports. And I love this time of the year because the playoffs are right around the corner for the NBA and NHL. Plus, baseball is finally back. If you're trying to go to your favorite sporting event, Game Time is the app for you. I've used Game Time for the past few years, and I can't tell you how many MLB games I've been able to go with me and my fiance, Alex. Last-minute tickets and zone deals. Easy to find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event in your area. Views from all of the seats in the venue. Lowest price guarantee. Event cancellation protection. Job loss protection. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code CHATSPORTS. That's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Or you can just look at the bottom of your screen. Or if you don't know how to spell Chat Sports at this time, well, I don't know if I can help you at that point. So download Game Time today. If you're wondering what time is it, it's game time. One of the number one things I want to really try to do, I want to go to a Vegas Golden Knights game. If anybody's got a hookup with that, dude, I love being able to go watch hockey live. And my dad's an Islanders fan, I'm not going to lie, and watching the Ovechkin game the other night and having him score $8.95, my dad was so upset that he wasn't watching it live. He literally stepped out for a minute, and I told him, dude, Ovechkin just scored. I would love to be able to go watch a hockey game live, and I think for anybody out there that's never had the opportunity to do it, you should try to take advantage of it because the Golden Knights are one hell of a team. Shout out to Game Time for sponsoring the Raiders Report. Again, those links are going to be available to y'all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. So let's talk about some of these NFL news and rumors. And where there's smoke, there's fire, y'all. And I know a lot of y'all probably roll your eyes when I say that statement because I say it a lot. But there is a lot of smoke right now around Shedeur going to the New Orleans Saints, so much so that there's already been talks of Shedeur. Saints quarterback coach and wide receiver coach met with Deion at Colorado's Pro Day. And after that meeting took place and after Shedeur had his Pro Day, I am somebody that I like to look at the tea leaves. I like to look at rumors. Deion Sanders recently said, quote, that he likes the possibility of the Saints drafting Shedeur. We also know that Deion's been very vocal about what teams he wants his son to be able to go to. There's also been a lot of rumors that sounds like Travis Hunter is going to go number 2 overall. Sounds like Cam Ward's going to go number 1 overall. And I always look at Vegas. And since the Pro Day, the team that has the highest betting odds to draft Shedeur Sanders are, in fact, the New Orleans Saints. What I find very interesting about that, and I love the fact that that's kind of in the realm of possibilities, because in my personal opinion, the Saints wanting Shedeur makes me think that a Raiders and Saints trade, it could happen. I would scream from the rooftops, if you want the Raiders to trade back, hit that like button type of shit, because I do think going from 6 to 9, we all nice, right? That one's for you, Rebel. When you go from 6 to 9, you can go back and you can accumulate some of those more picks. I also know that Brady is obviously in the Sanders circle. I'm not saying that Deion is going to tell the Saints, hey, you got to work with the Raiders, but I do think that Deion has that trust factor with the Raiders to sit there and tell certain people that are close to him. And again, Tom Brady has been Shedeur's mentor. I really do believe that the Raiders and Saints, there's a better chance of a trade happening because Deion, Shedeur, they trust Tom Brady probably more than they trust almost any other NFL team out there. And if the Raiders are willing to trade back, which they 100% are looking to trade back. I'm not saying that they're going to do it, but they're at least entertaining the ideas because they want to get some more draft picks. Well, here's a trade that I think when you look at the NFL trade value chart, it aligns. It's also what I would want from the Raiders. The unfortunate part about this year's draft is it's not as valuable as past years. And I really think that this is a trade that I would do. If you told me right now we can go from 6 down to 9, we get an extra second-round pick at pick 40 that helps us get an extra dude, maybe like a Trey Amos, maybe an Xavier Watts, maybe a Trevion Henderson, maybe it helps you get a Carson Swessinger. And then the Saints, they get pick 108 in exchange. This would be a good deal for the Raiders, and I think that this is kind of the price of what it would cost if you wanted to trade back from 6 to 9, and if the Saints wanted to go up and get Shedeur Sanders, because jumping over the Jets at 7, I do think is something to look at. I know they have Justin Fields, but it's only a one-year prove-it deal, essentially. Let's talk about another quarterback. It's Jaylen Milroe, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Jaylen Milroe might go in round 1, and that's a shocking statement because, hell, if you would ask me 48 hours ago, do I think Jaylen Milroe goes in the top 2 rounds, I say no. And I say that because, and if you haven't seen this story, this is one to really, truly monitor. Milroe recently accepted an invitation to attend the NFL draft. What this means is there is at least one NFL team that is legitimately considering drafting him in round 1. One NFL executive said, quote, the NFL doesn't want another Will Levis situation. So do you remember when Will was thought to be a potential top 5 pick, round 1 pick? He sat there all day and it did not end up getting drafted. Obviously ended up getting drafted in round 2. But the NFL has been very critical and it's been very, what'd you say? Oh, that's totally different. The NFL, though, has been very if you're going to invite somebody to the or if you're going to invite somebody to the draft, they have to have a chance to be drafted in round 1. Let's face it. If Shedeur goes off the board, if Jalen's potentially going to go in round 1, I think that means Jackson Dart's going earlier, Tyler Shuck might go earlier, and you could see a huge run on quarterbacks, kind of like what we saw maybe last season with some of those offensive linemen. So now is what I want you to do is look into those crystal balls and tell me, will Jaylen Milroe get drafted in round 1? I'm still going to say that I feel like the answer is no, right? This is like my mind's telling me one thing, my body's telling me something else. I know Milroe is an alien. And I know if there's some coaches out there that probably believe, hey, I can work with this kid because his 2023 tape with Nick Saban is a lot better than his 2024 tape without Nick Saban. And we'll see what ends up happening. But I do think that Jaylen Milroe, after seeing that a team invited him, I don't even think he's going to be available to the Raiders at 37, which means, again, you could see a run on quarterbacks, which might be good because that means that some players might end up falling. If you were to ask me which teams do I think are the most likely to get Milroe, I do think that the New York Giants and the Cleveland Browns, not obviously a pick 2 or 3, but kind of in the back end of the first round or at the beginning of the second round. The Saints have got to be up there. Pittsburgh, because I know there's some meetings there. And Sean McVay has always been one of those dudes that really does truly believe in himself. The Jets also are a team to throw out there that could potentially pick a QB, again, because they have Justin Fields. Before we get into the final story, and it's actually some trade rumors around a very prominent Jets player, I want to give a shout-out to the Noti Gang, and you're going to see a bunch of people that are watching this live today, a bunch of shout-outs to the Noti Gang, because this is the time of the year where when stuff gets slow, and y'all are still commenting on our videos very early, it is the ultimate. So I want to be able to show you guys that I appreciate that. So Bila, Jaime, Clownface Killa, and Mad Vet Raider, huge shout out to you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for turning on those notifications. And thank you for being a part of that Noti Gang. Let's go to the final story here, and it's around Breece Hall. And there's been some speculation that the New York Jets could potentially move on from Breece Hall, which that means if the Jets are moving on from a running back because the Raiders have been so terrible at running back, could the Raiders be interested? Well, if you haven't seen the latest around this, Hall is apparently on the Jets trade block because of some of the comments that New York front office has made, essentially saying that they're going to go with a 3 running back approach. And that doesn't, not that it doesn't sit well with Hall, But because he's in the final year of his contract, a prove-it year, he doesn't want to be in a committee. He wants to go out there, do his thing, and prove that he deserves to get paid big time. So the fact that the Raiders clearly need a running back, and Hall does fit that running style that Pete Carroll looks for of just physicality. He can also catch the football, I think, a lot better than what people give him credit for. But I'll be real. This isn't a trade that the Raiders would consider before the draft. Quite frankly, I'd be shocked if any team really tried to trade for Breece Hall before the draft, just considering how deep the running back draft class is. If somehow, some way, we leave the 2025 NFL draft with the same running back room that we entered it with, then yeah, then we're going to need a running back and we're going to need to explore all those other options. But Hall has been a name that I have been asked, Mitch, could you see the Raiders trading for him based on the recent rumors and based on the recent reports out of New York? I don't think it's going to happen. I would be shocked simply because of how deep this running back class truly, truly is. Now, I appreciate everyone tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm at Mitchell Renz 365, and if I don't get to any of your questions, I will always try to hit up my DMs. I've also been pumping out a lot of content, whether it's some of the videos that we already make here, even more takes on social. So if you like what you see here and you want more Raiders Report content, don't be afraid to hit me up on social media at Mitchell Renz 365.